My name is Jasmine Kelly. I just got my BFA in Crafts and Materials with a concentration in ceramics. And for my thesis within that work, I created this body that I call Mindscape. I didn't plan to do it for a thesis. I more so just felt this drive that I needed to make it. And every piece within the show chronicles not only a memory, but how I process memories. So throughout are doors with fog, and that is how I see memories. They're all held behind these doorways that are in different states of accessibility, and then are surrounded by fog, which is sometimes super dense and you can't see the doors, or is super opaque and you can access them. And then behind those doorways are the memories, which are depicted as the other works throughout the exhibition. The candles also are incorporated to ground the viewer, as it's a very corporeal space, and I wanted it to feel, that while you are traveling through this very kind of flowing, foggy state, you can still ground yourself and not get lost in it. So one piece in particular that tends to get a lot of attention is the church piece, titled All I See Is Demons. It's about a memory of being a child and going to church, and as I was sitting there, listening to everything happening, I looked up into the rafters and I saw all these creatures up there, and I started freaking out, and I looked around me and realized nobody else can see this. I'm the only one that can see these up there. And I was like, oh my gosh, they must be demons. All I see is demons. And I didn't want to go to church after that. And everyone always thought like, oh, Jasmine's just not religious, which that experience did cause me to seek my own religion. But, it was more so just a very unnerving experience as a child, saying, this is supposed to be a safe space and it doesn't feel safe. And seeing that throughout my life repeated, that moment so thoroughly in a space that's supposed to be safe, just really turned me off from it. So another piece within the exhibition is titled Bonding. It's my grandmother's house, but the piece is actually more so about my father. There's a poem on the back, and it reads, time marked by the crushed ends of cigarette butts, long hours between puffs before the words slip from your tongue. We are not done. Long weeks between our stays leave only these windows to unwind. Time, she be a cruel mistress, dressed like the woman you love. And yet this porch offers safety in its chill breeze. No judgment falls here. It is a stronghold, but is it home? And it's speaking to how my father and I only really bonded while he was outside smoking cigarettes. Due to visitations, we could only meet at her house. And so, it was a stronghold, but it didn't feel like home. It didn't feel like a safe space where we could talk. And that only safe space was his porch, and it was out there while he was smoking cigarettes because no one else wanted to be out there but me. In kind of that sacred memory that's also hard to think about, which is what a lot of these pieces are. The purpose of creating them is to shed them and to say, this is no longer a part of me, this no longer controls me. And once again, this piece with the candles is meant to be completely encased in wax over time and then buried and forgotten. Other pieces, such as the lower piece on the floor, is titled Pelt. It's not really meant to be seen, which a lot of people have trouble with, but it's a lot of darker memories that I have trouble accessing myself, whether they are good, but it's hard to think about because I want to be in those times, or bad in the sense that they shaped me in a way that I'm not proud of. But this piece is meant to be a shed skin. It's my pelt. It's the emotions of those times are no longer controlling, and now they are discarded, but not necessarily forgotten because they will still always be a part of me. Other pieces that are kind of running throughout the work, one of them is Ribbon of Thought. as the title suggests, it's just kind of thoughts running through the pieces as, you travel through and are interacting with the memories, just different emotions that are associated along the way that are depicted by different colorings. Of course, the darker memories are mimicked by the wood-fired ceramic, just because that wear and tear, not only on the ceramic material, but on the body as well as you're going through the firing process, really relates to the message behind the work. So all of this work was meant to hold the mark of its making, so to speak. I wanted to keep every finger mark that I put into it, and I really wanted the materials to move in an organic way to mimic the fog-like structures that I was looking for. And in order to do that, I had to mix my own clay. I made my own paper clay, high fire paper clay, and I mixed it. I waited till it was the consistency that I liked, and I would just take a glob of it, kind of smush it into a fat patty with all of its finger marks, and then work it into the piece and adjust the marks as needed. Afterwards, a lot of them were actually not glazed at all. There are a few that have high fire glaze. The small doors have a high fire glaze that was brushed on and then wiped off, so it's only really in the cracks. And the piece Hug of the Unknown has a glaze as well that was then gas fired. All of the firing processes, there are a couple that are electric, but all of those are only finished in wax as a way to give them a very kind of gooey, again, fog-like look to them. But the rest are all either, 2 of them are gas-fired, and then the rest are wood-fired. And I chose wood firing because the dark finishes that it produces, to me, are very appealing and beautiful because they mimic the wear and tear, so to speak, of human existence. And not only are the pieces going through this whipping of flames all around them in these crazy ways and constant feeding and temperatures rising and all through the night, a full day of just firing and being put through this process itself, but also as the human going through that and feeding that flame and having to tend it till 3 a.m. when you started at 6 a.m. the day before. It really just adds this layer to the work that you can't just achieve by sticking it in an electric kiln. You can kind of maybe mimic finishes, but it doesn't have that weight, that density. And with the memories being so dense themselves, I wanted them to have that weight. And because of that, I felt that this firing process was crucial. And I've realized within my own work that as a ceramicist, I enjoy those reduction methods that take a lot to fire. I enjoy the work that goes in the way you have to mull over it, and it's not as simple as just setting a timer and leaving. So when I went to go start this body of work, I was a junior in college, and I was about to enter my senior year, and I just couldn't stop making doors in fog. And people kept telling me, like, Jasmine, this isn't really coming together. I think you need to move off this subject. And I just felt this pull that I needed to do it. And I even told my therapist, I was like, I need to do this. These memories, I need to get them out. And the only way that I know how to do that is to make these forms. And so I kind of went into a crazy state and made a whole body of work. The exhibition isn't even all that I created. There's many pieces that honestly, once they were bisqued, I just smashed because that memory felt like it needed that. And I really just followed what the pieces told me. And I don't have a better way to describe that. I very much would just look at them, and if they felt ready, then they were ready. And when it came to choosing pieces for the exhibitions, I felt like I needed to choose ones that were resolved. Yeah, I didn't want to put pieces that I was still feeling iffy about. So every piece feels resolved, not only in the sense of physicality, but in the sense of emotions as well. I no longer feel anything when I think of that memory. I now can think of it and I just think of the piece. I don't think of that scene that I saw before. Whatever played out when I thought of it before is no longer there. It is just that piece I made, And then in looking at that piece, I think of the process. And, I go back to that time of making, and it's a lot more therapeutic. And in approaching this work, a lot of people were very concerned for me. They said, especially my therapist, he was like, are you sure this is something that you want to approach because of what it may bring up? And it did. I upped therapy working on this. But I needed to do it. I needed to move on. And I almost feel that in creating these, I was able to fully become an adult, which is weird to say. But they're all from childhood, and so still holding on to them, I couldn't move past that. And so by working on these pieces, I was like, I am now my own person. I am now an adult. I am now capable of all of these things that I want to do, and it just gave me this confidence that I did not expect to have, but that I'm very grateful for. But yeah, the whole time I was making this work, I just kept saying that it was my therapy session. And some folks would even walk into my studio and be like, oh, what are you up to? And I'd just go, therapy. And even the process of the wax, having to melt and color it myself, and having to apply it and decide when enough was enough. And kind of getting it dripped on and the little burns to remind you, oh, be careful. And it was just very cathartic. And now, in having it done, I do feel almost like a weight has been lifted, especially now that, my exhibitions are over, I'm graduated, all of those fun things.